Hi, do I have other people here?
Hi, this is Terry with DCED. How are you today?
Hi, good, Terry. How are you?
Good, good.
And did you get my link where I added you as a panelist?
I did. That was the link I joined on.
Perfect. There we go.
I saw you had quite a few registered.
Well, we have over 200, so I was really surprised at how quickly they all came in.
Okay, folks, This is Rick Shuttler, Executive Director of the Pennsylvania Municipal League. Welcome to our webinar today. We have a really nice crowd on. Really appreciate everyone being here. Glad to bring it to you. Special thank you to our friends at DCED and their friends at PEMA to present to us today. So without further ado, I'm, as always, honored to introduce Deputy Secretary Rick Valello, who will take it from there. Secretary Valello, please.
I appreciate, can you hear me, Rick?
Yes.
Okay. I appreciate the opportunity and glad to get on with the Municipal League. I prefer when we're together in person. I miss being in person and doing stuff with all of you guys. You know, this is a challenging time for everybody, and I figured I'd start with just an update on where I'm doing the webinar from to give some perspective. If we think back just 2 months ago, on March 11th, I was in my office at the Keystone building, and I got a call from the secretary's office, and they said, come down to the secretary's office. And Secretary Davin said, Rick, you're going to represent us at PEMA for the pandemic. It was 1:15 in the afternoon. I asked him, okay, when do I have to be there? He said 2 o'clock. And the last 2 months have been very long days, but very short weeks. The 2 months have flown by. Issues that I've never expected to deal with. Most of you guys know me from my days at the Municipal League and days as president of the league and days as mayor of Lock Haven. When I was mayor of Lock Haven, we did exercises for floods. We did a train wreck exercise. When I got to DCD in March of 2015, we did a 3 Mile Island type nuclear accident, but we never did a pandemic. And all of the continuity of operations, plans, and things I think are being stretched to the limit. With the flooding type event, it's easy to look at a map and maybe get a drone out and you can see where the high water marks were. You can see, you know, the houses that were washed out. And, you know, if Joe's Pizza Shop on Main Street was washed out, you know, you're done recovery when Joe's Pizza Shop is back in operation. With the other type events, you know, a train wreck, if you clean up the train, you fix the track, the trains start running again, you've recovered from that disaster. This one's a little bit different. When my first day at PEMA, the room that we're in kind of looks like the room, if anybody's watched movies about NASA and mission control, the room we're in looks a lot like that room with a big board and video screens and, you know, a lot of smart people around the room. I was a former mayor, so I'm not considered one of those really smart people. But you look around the room and there's a lot of really smart people, and there's a video board with the number of cases and the number of deaths in Pennsylvania. And that first day I was there, the number on the big board was 6. And, you know, it has gone up every day. And we're it's what, the 13th? So it's 2 months and 2 days since that first day I was here. And today's number on the big board is 58,698. So in a little over 8 weeks, we're approaching 59,000 cases. And while the slope is plateauing, we're not out of the woods yet. And I, as all of you, realize how hard this has been. Being in your shoes, I really sympathize with where you're at and the challenge of getting information to all of your citizens and getting good answers, and pretty much still in the same boat. Really impressed with the Municipal League staff, and Rick Schottler and I talk often, almost on a daily basis. This week though has been fairly quiet, Rick, so that's a good sign. About issues from things like unemployment compensation to funding to, how are we going to support local government? And a lot of times the question is, I don't know, we're trying, I'll help. And, just trying to get the right people connected. One of the people that we've been working closely with here at Pima is Chris Evans. He works closely with all of your county EMA directors and your municipal emergency response directors. And I'll turn the next portion over to Chris. Next slide, please.
We got it. Yeah. Okay, thank you. Chris Evans, the Acting Bureau Director for Recovery and Mitigation. And thank you, Rick, for having us here today. Yeah, Rick and his team was instrumental in our SBA declaration. That was a big lift. We needed to identify 67 businesses in the Commonwealth, one from each county, loss of business on the SBA criteria. And Rick's folks was right out of the bat. Like you said, day one he was in here. It was probably day three we were going after an SBA. All of a sudden, this was going from cruise speed to hyper speed real quick as people jumped in real quick and helped secure that SBA for our businesses right away. We were one of the first in the nation in the door with that for our businesses. And thank Rick and his people for that. I want to give you a quick brief on where we are with the FEMA Public Assistance Program for COVID-19. Like Rick said, after a flood, we have those FEMA declarations. This is my 22nd one in the Commonwealth, and I'm sure many of you have been in them before. But I wanted to give you a quick high level where we're at and where we're going. Some of you may have heard last week, 2 weeks ago, in a presentation done by a private entity that only 52 of the Pennsylvania counties, all 52 counties were declared. Well, I want to let you know that it's all 67 of our counties were declared. And you can see underneath here in the slide, the second bullet gets into the other local then entities and the private nonprofits. That's who we've been working with. We started off with our survey. Next slide. So we did a survey 1, 2, 3. First time we used this. We got it out through the watch to the counties, all other organizations to get it down to the local level. And we ended up with over 3,200 respondents. That's for the first time ever with all 67 counties declared. That's the first that's ever happened at one time in the Commonwealth. But we had respondents from all 67 counties. We had the every county EMC for the county entity, and lots of local political subdivisions, school districts, authorities, and corresponding private nonprofits. So that's what we've been working with. That gave us a contact to work directly with, and we've been messaging them periodically. I think in that message has been going out in emails. And we've done to start the program with FEMA and getting the reimbursement. Last week, we completed our applicants briefing via WebEx. Next slide, please. So this was a schedule that we've completed. We split the Commonwealth into the 3 PEMA areas: Western area, Eastern area, Central area, and split the areas in half. That gave us a good control and ability of the applicants, those listening in, to ask questions. We had somebody on there, some of you may have even been on it. We had one of my full-time people on there answering questions during the event on the chat room, and then we did a question and answer afterwards. I think it went real well. Applicants are now entering FEMA's portal. FEMA has an online portal where all work is done. Remember the old days? Like Rick said, we used to come around that applicant's briefing. If you had a flooding event, you probably remember me coming to your municipality, to your county, and doing a morning and evening brief on the flooding event. So that was new to us, having to do the WebEx. Then new with FEMA is the portal. So everything is done in there. People are getting signed in. As of today, we had about 192 entities that met the FEMA criteria for the program. And we're moving forward with it. We see no issues. We are planning on doing our next stage 2 is for the private nonprofit healthcare entities. We didn't work with them right now because all of their funding has been coming from HHS grants and will continue to come from there. At some point, that's your hospitals, nursing homes, continuing care, therapy, a lot of different places. So we will work with them in the near future to get them a placeholder within FEMA's portal. So if months from now, hopefully when this is over and the grant cycle is done, if they have any leftover costs that would be eligible for FEMA's reimbursement, we can get those in. So I would like to work questions. Do you want to do the chat or just send to you? That's all I have for now.
It looks like we do have some questions that were posed on the Q&A feature. I don't know if these questions are in regard to the PEMA slides or if they are for Secretary Villello and his office.
The one on the pool, that would have to be a health. Loss of funding, I do not know that answer.
That would be us, but we'll do that at the end.
And the community ends their, if the community ends their, Greg puts in, if a community ends their local emergency declaration, will it put a potential future funding in jeopardy? As you had it in effect during when you did your emergency protective measures, you're good. You know, everybody has, we always got to remind, and being a Commonwealth, we need those declarations down to the local level. If we have an emergency and we're looking for federal grants, dealing with a municipality without a federal emergency declaration, kind of oxymoron. But if you're done working and you let that go, I don't see an issue with that. Again, you're gonna have to, at the local level, determine that. Along with, there's many other funding streams out there. We're pushing that with a lot of the municipalities. School districts now have Department of Ed COVID CARES grants. All the police departments have COVID CARE grants. So that's what we're working through, is getting them separate out.
The other questions are local government DCD type questions, and we'll try to answer them as they come up at the end when the group of us are done. If Ted Martin's on, we'll turn the next slide over to Ted.
Rebecca.
Oh,
Can you
great.
confirm that entities in Lancaster are not to apply for, that's an ongoing discussion. It's my understanding with the CARES Act that Lancaster has that are meant for, can be used for the local level, that they are planning on doing that. That's great. The other counties that got that, along with the state, are looking at those funds too. Those are 100% federal funds, whereas in this FEMA public assistance with PEMA, there's a 25% cost share that the Commonwealth picks up. So by Lancaster utilizing that CARES Act, that's going to save the Commonwealth taxpayer money.
And the other counties that are involved with that are Allegheny, Bucks, Chester, Delaware, Montgomery, Philadelphia, and Lancaster.
William has, who do we need to contact if we submitted the original survey for public assistance grant but have not received the information to access the portal? If you are a private non-profit, Bill, for the briefing WebEx, we have to invite you, and we have not done that yet. We're still trying to get that sorted out with FEMA on how to do that. If you're a municipality, a political subdivision, authority, or school district, being on here, I'm guessing you're a political subdivision. The slides gave you the process for accessing the grant portal yourself and setting up your account. And Autumn, no, that is not the same. The portal address are within the slides from the WebEx.
Okay, let's move into Ted Martin and the next slide.
Thanks very much, Rick. This is Ted Martin. I'm with the Governor's Center for Local Government Services. When we put together the presentation, I wanted to make sure that the map was part of that presentation. Certainly to remind you that we cover the entire state, but also to remind you that we are working with you and available to you throughout this crisis, as we have been throughout really so many years. Our people in the field, our policy specialists, our planners are taking calls, are working with folks on a regular basis. We are averaging anywhere from 90 to 140 calls a day, many of them typical things that we do, but a lot of them having to do with everything from Zoom calls to the ability to access documents. And so the Local Government Services Center is there for you. And so I wanted to make sure that this was included, so you'll have this information when the slides are eventually given to you, and you'll be able to reach out to all of the folks that are available. Terry Kunkel, one of our policy specialists, will be presenting here, and certainly she'll make the information that she presents, which is really valuable, known to all our policy specialists, so they'll be able to help you through. But I simply wanted to make sure that you knew that we were there for you and will continue to be there for you. And the questions that we don't know immediate answers for, we'll certainly get them for you. So really that was my single reason for putting the map in here, and hope that you'll know that you can access us and depend on us moving forward. And with that, I'll turn it back to Rick. Next slide, please.
The next slide is on the municipal states of emergency. And I don't suspect any counties are on this webinar, but the county and your municipal state of emergency, we're urging people that if you've not declared a state of emergency, to declare a state of emergency, and that the date coincide with the state's declaration of emergency. And that at least a 14-day declaration follow the Commonwealth's set end date. And why we're recommending that, and you know, it is a technicality, but I know in some flooding events and other declared emergencies, after the fact, people have applied for funding, and because they didn't declare a state of emergency during the event, they weren't eligible for a certain pot of funding. What we've been told is everybody is covered by the state's declaration of emergency, but we are still encouraging all to coincide, just because we don't know what funding streams are going to look like, what the guidelines are going to look like. And, you know, if you're eligible for some reimbursement of expenses, we want you to be able to apply for it. So it's a paper technicality, but I think it's an important one. The next slide. County and municipal political units, and this was, you know, promulgated one of the first guidelines that came down. All of you are part of political subdivisions, and in the state have autonomy within your municipal borders. So you were not required to suspend in-person operations by the governor's order, but what we've put out is that you should curtail in-person operations. You know, if grandma can pay her taxes by check or in a Dropbox or online, we prefer grandma staying home. You know, if you can minimize face-to-face operations following the CDC guidelines and the Department of Health guidelines. Act 15 was passed for remote meetings, you know, any functions that can minimize interaction of the public, limiting public parks and public spaces. All of that is important to limit that face-to-face interaction between people. Next slide. All the life-sustaining businesses list, it wasn't intended to be a comprehensive list of every business in Pennsylvania. The initial list was taken from the Homeland Security list, and then there was a waiver process. Some municipalities have gone, you know, door to door for enforcement. Some have not done any enforcement. What we're asking is for everybody to use their best judgment to limit that face-to-face contact. If they're on the list to not be open, you know, it's a pretty serious thing. The governor's taking it serious. You guys should be taking it serious also. As we move some counties from red to yellow, we don't want to slide back and go from yellow to red. We want to keep making progress and go from yellow to green. And if you see some states that have gone, you know, too open too quickly or starting to slide backwards, we don't want that to happen. We think the state's plan is well thought out. It's reasonable. We know the pain that local businesses are facing. We know the challenges that this is, but one of the things that I've shared, and being the former mayor of Lock Haven, you know, Lock Haven right now isn't like the city of Philadelphia. It never was like the city of Philadelphia, but you know, the Lock Haven Hospital has 48 beds and 5 ventilators. How long would it take a rural hospital like Lock Haven Hospital to be overwhelmed? And a lot of our rural areas are in that same situation. So while your numbers are a lot lower than, you know, Philadelphia or Montgomery County or Allegheny County, the number of health resources is also a lot lower. So we're encouraging as much caution as we can encourage. Next slide, please. I'll turn this back to Ted to go through municipal statistics.
Thank you very much, Rick. Absolutely. So as I said earlier, we at the Governor's Center made sure that we continued to operate. And so municipal statistics, as you know, is an important thing that we collect. And while the legislative due date of April 1st for some municipal statistics for annual audits did not change, we are not going to penalize municipalities if they did not submit the audit by April 1st. So we're trying to really be as cooperative as possible. We continue also to work with the Auditor General's Office for the AVR forms, so we're continuing to collect those as well as we move forward. And there are certainly resources and questions and answer contacts there for you once you see the slides. Next slide. Also, we've been able to collect a lot of resources within the department, and I failed to mention earlier, but we have FAQs that are on the department's website. We update quite regularly, and we also provided resources in e-blasts to our municipal lists, and also provide them regularly on our website. You'll see a list of very important resources there from the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, the Centers for Disease Control, the Governor's Office. Once again, back to our FAQs, which are, as I said, updated regularly and have been added to, and also information, valuable information from the Pennsylvania Department of Agriculture. All those contacts are there, and they're also available not only on our website, but through the center, and we'll make sure that they're provided to you when you get the slides as well. Next slide, please. Once again, federal and state loan information, some important resources. Obviously, the U.S. Department of Agriculture, the Rural Development, COVID impacted communities, information that has been provided by the USDA is highly important, and really talks about extended deadlines, applications, all of these things that are helping you get through the process with the support that both the federal and the state government are operating, are available on our website. With that, I'll ask to advance to the next slide, and I'll turn it over to my colleague, Terry Kunkel. Terry?
Thanks, Ted. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Terry Kunkel. I am the local government policy specialist, like Rick had originally said, in the Northwest region. And as I kind of perused through the participant panel, there's a lot of you out there that I know from the Northwest. So reach out to all of you guys. And I guess to start with kind of what Rick touched on, Act 15, formerly SB 841, that gives the local governments the ability to waive late fees and penalties on the real estate taxes. Work with your counties. Some of you probably have already acted, and if you haven't, the recommendation is to work with your county, follow their lead. This could become a tax collector's bookkeeping issue. So if you could all work together, that would be in everyone's best interest. And anticipate your budget loss. That's the things that we're going to cover in the upcoming slides. We're all anticipating the financial hit, and we're going to go over what projections for your budget. So next slide, please. Projected losses, of course, real estate, EIT, the big one. That's where everyone's concerned. Charges for services and intergovernmental revenue, another big one. Federal and state aid, unknown. Everything is unknown right now in that funding. And we're all aware that the state is projecting a $4.5 to a $5 billion deficit, and no one really knows where that's going. That's just something that you're going to have to keep your eyes and ears open and plan for accordingly. Next slide. The draft budget. First a disclaimer for all of these projections. These are not DCED's projections. These are from expert consultants throughout the state that work with municipalities on a regular basis on daily activities. And of course, we're all in uncharted waters, and we're all trying to navigate. And so therefore, that's why these are just projections. They're just made to be informational only for you to take back. This spreadsheet is available, and like Ted showed in the maps before, you can look at who your local government policy specialist is in your region and reach out to them for a copy of this spreadsheet. The formulas are there. You can plug in your numbers, and there's also extra line items to fill in for what is specific to your municipality. Real estate taxes, you can see this particular draft budget was estimated on a city with a $15 million budget. We just took an average. So real estate taxes, if you look into your budget in 2020 for $5 million, you're looking at, they're anticipating a 5% loss. The majority of people are right on track with real estate. The thing you have to remember is that 70%, an approximate 70% are paid out of escrow. So that money's already there. The 5% is anticipated from people that might be out of work, that choose not to pay their property taxes over buying groceries. So you can see the loss there at a 5%. Next slide. Act 511 taxes, here we go. Here's where everyone's concerned. Earned income tax. Earned income tax is the one that's probably going to take the biggest hit. You can assume a 75% reduction for 90 days. So that's being said that, you know, this is over in 90 days, or people are, the majority of people are back to work in 90 days. So there's your projection there to 3 million. Real estate transfer tax or could take a hit. No, you know, there's been no sale of property. LST is another one, and mechanical device is another one. You can see there at the bottom the projected that this particular city, the projected loss in your 511 category is about 20%. Next slide. The following: license, permits, fines. These categories are all city specific, and every city's different. So we generalized the business and license permits there. That is, you know, your building closures and things like that have impacted you there at that category. Once again, I left the franchise cable television because some people have been asking about that, but there's not likely an impact there. So you're looking again at about a 20% total loss in that category. Fines and restitutions, the same thing, the closure of the court system, assuming that the code, there's been no code enforcement for 90 days. Now, some of these, once your building's open, you're gonna rebound a little bit in. You're not gonna know this until the end of the year, but like I said, the projection is at about a 19 to 20%. Next slide. Interest and rent and royalties. Here's another one with your interest. You're not collecting the money, you're not going to collect the interest. It's just as simple as that. And rental of your buildings and maybe picnic pavilions, things like that, where things have been canceled. Some of you might own venue centers. Those are going to take about a 20% hit or maybe more. So that's something too that you'll have to keep an eye on. Here we go, intergovernmental revenue, federal and state aid. As I said in the beginning, these are unknown categories, and these are just something that we're telling you, please rework your budgets. I can't ask enough, can't say it enough. Once these are released, rework your budget, see how this is going to affect you. Next slide. Payment in lieu of taxes. This is a big one. A lot of people have agreements for payment in lieu of taxes, and some just have a handshake and a wink wink, and here you go, here's our payment in lieu of taxes, let's work this out. Now, that they're projecting about a 20% loss in this category, 19 to 20%, but what is recommended is don't project a huge loss. The reason being is for those handshake and wink wink people, you don't want to give them an edge in saying, oh, well, they're already anticipating the loss, so let's just not pay it this year. So don't anticipate too big of a loss in your payment in lieu of taxes. Charges for services, of course, here's another one. The best way and what the experts are kind of leaning towards, because of in the general overview category there, you know, subdivision and zoning, parking fees, things like that. They're saying to take your budget, divide it by 52, and then take a 2%, then each week figure it to be a 2% loss. And then hopefully some of those charges for services will rebound. Of course, parking fees, things like that are not going to, but hopefully some of them will. Culture and recreation, for those of you who own golf courses, airports, things like that, anticipate a 25% loss. So you can see there in the charge for services, that assumes a 9-week closure. And then of course your unclassified expenses, little to no impact there. Not sure. This is once again city specific as to what you generate under that title of miscellaneous revenue. Next slide. So you can see about a $14 million budget. The new projected budget is $12,775,000, a total loss of about $1,225,000. Overall, if you average every category and the projected loss in each category, you're looking at about a 15 to 10% reduction over the fiscal year for now. That's the projection. If you did do any furloughs, you've got to think about the savings, and some of that will offset your loss. Budget, always remember, it's not a guessing game. It should be a close estimate, especially now. It's a great tool during a crisis like this. And always, I just can't stress enough, revisit your budget in July. Look at it again. You're going to probably have to make some cuts and some changes. So revisit it, take a look at it, and just move forward with what happens. In government, it changes every day. So we all know that, and we all change with it. So that being said, I'll turn it back over to Ted.
Thank you very much, Terry. And we'll actually I'm going to turn this actually over to the panel discussion and give it over to Rick Villello to lead the way in taking your questions and answering. Rick?
Normally when I start a speech, and many of you I know and many of you have heard it, but for the ones that don't, I often start a speech, and I forgot to do it today, with my cell number. I have to do it. It's part of what I do, trying to help you and serve you. So if you have a pen and paper where you're at, my cell number is 570-263-0578. 570-263-0578. If I can help, or something doesn't come up, I did see some of the questions go by as they were coming up. One of the questions was, is an MMO deferment being considered for pension MMOs? Everything is being discussed. The impact on all of the municipal pension funds is being looked at. Rick Schuttler and I have talked about, pension reform and what this impact is going to look like. If you guys have numbers on the impact and what it's going to look like, it would be a good time to get that information to Rick and John Brenner, and also to your state representative, saying, this is a crisis and something needs to be done. There was a question about contact tracing. The Department of Health is working with setting that up for every county through the Community Health Network. I am not aware of how that is working. I'll make a note and I'll get more information to the league, and they can put it out, and we'll put something up on our resource page about what the hiring process is going to look like for the contact tracing. And then there was a question about the consequences that for a business that doesn't follow the governor's orders. One of the things that is being looked at is if it, whatever their licensing is through, revocation of their license. So if it's a restaurant with a liquor license, revocation of their liquor license. If it's a contractor, rejection of his license to do business. Anybody that heard the governor on Monday, he's taking this seriously, and wants you to take it as seriously. We know the numbers are low in some areas. We want those numbers to stay low, and all of the data is being looked at. Wearing a mask and following these orders shouldn't be a political decision. It should be a health decision. And I can't see any other questions. The budget numbers that we used in the slides aren't budget numbers for any existing place. It was just an exercise so that you guys could look at how we estimated the impact. And we used a lot of our financial consultants through the distressed community that work with municipal budgeting, and to come up with the projections. And it's going to vary a little, but it's to give you an idea of how that would look. And you can kind of, if you know what percentage real estate taxes are for your overall budget, you can look at these slides and use that to project your loss in revenue. Amanda will get the slides out to everybody and a link to all the resources. Our emails are on here. And if you go into DCD's website, on our website, there's a COVID resource page for both municipal government and for businesses. At what point should City Hall resume face-to-face interactions? Should be at yellow or green? I would say, as long as you're limiting face-to-face interaction, if you can do something like the grocery stores are doing with sneeze guards and masks and encouraging social distancing, if you have to do something face-to-face, you're able to make that decision because you have local authority. But like, if you normally have a Memorial Day picnic with 1,000 people in one of your parks, you don't want to do that until we're free and clear. But, on a case-by-case basis, you can make that decision. If you're not citing the individual private businesses, we've not gotten to that level of enforcement, and I hope we don't get to that level of enforcement. The state police are picking up in some of the places where it's not occurring, and more of that is occurring in where the real hot spots are. If you see the deep red on the red map. And I hope no local government or county, puts DCD or any of us in the position where we say, we're sorry, you don't qualify for a grant because you guys didn't follow the governor's orders. This is a really bad situation. I understand, that we are caught in the middle, but it is about people's lives, and it's about protecting people's health. And, there's decisions being made on lives over livelihood. We're all going to have to pull together to come out of it. I was mayor during the 08-09 recession. I think this is going to be much more difficult. Nobody wanted us to be in the situation we are, but we don't want to slide back into red, especially if you're in an area where it's yellow now. We still have to take all the precautions. If you look at some of the other countries that are already going through a second wave, it's, people are dying. Any consideration been given to waiving prevailing wage for bidding projects? That's way above my level of discussion. And I think, anybody that's been involved in the prevailing wage discussions, I'm sure that's going to come up again in the legislature, but I don't have any control over that. The NAP, MPP extension are being considered through the month of closures, but you do have to request an extension. We can't just do a blanket extension. So if you have an NAP or MPP in your community and it needs an extension, please put in the request, and we will grant extensions. Summer camps are being looked at. I think in some areas of the state, they're going to be allowed, and in other areas of the state where, they're still really, really red, they're going to be not allowed. There's supposed to be guidance coming out this week or early next week on summer camps. The PPE equipment and requirements, we are catching up. Every day there's more coming into the state. If you have specific shortages in your municipality, go through your county EMA director. If you have businesses that are able to open up and need PPE, there's a portal on DCD's website that connects PPE providers with businesses that are looking for PPE. So as a municipality and local government, you can go through your county EMA director to acquire it. If you're a business, you can go through the portal on DCD.
Secretary Villallo, it's Rick.
Yes.
There are one or two there that maybe I could handle that maybe aren't in your domain.
Okay.
One is on funding for those that weren't, the 500,000 didn't get Direct CARES Act. Today, there was a bill introduced and the league has put out action calls on it that we're supporting, which would provide direct funding from the federal level, the HEROES Act as it is called, and we'll continue to advocate that. I would encourage everybody on this webinar to look at that, look at our website, and make sure that you contact your congressperson and ask for their support. It's critical. There was also a question about unemployment. There's extensive information on unemployment on our website too. We put out an advisory on it. I would say that if most municipalities are reimbursable under L&I as opposed to contributory and have not paid the solvency fee. And so if you are reimbursable, yes, under the CARES Act, as a community, you should be able to get 50% back. We are working and requesting that the governor take action to waive the solvency fee filing date, to extend it so people can make a decision now to do that. So just wanted to bring, those were two questions that were out there. Thank you.
Just saw a question pop up about unemployment data. It's on Labor and Industries website. There's a link on Labor and Industries website to get your local municipal unemployment data. I think the latest data up is as of April 20th, or it's the end of April data. It lags about 2 or 3 weeks. Grant awards, if it was contracted, your grant award should still be good. If it wasn't contracted, everything is on hold. If you have a specific grant question and know the award number, contact me or Ted, and we can follow up to find the status of it. The advantage of paying solvency fee for unemployment compensation. Rick, you're much more familiar with that than I am. Do you want to handle that one?
Sure. I already said my piece. No, we believe it would take that 50% to 100%. Now, there's a cash outlay. You know, the solvency fee, there's a calculation that has to be done that you can do, and you can make that decision on your own, but that's what it would do. Again, visit our website. There's a tab just for that. It provides a lot of information.
And like I said, Rick and John and I are talking all the time. I'm talking with the other local government associations. Some of the challenges we've been facing with the Act 47 distress communities, we've had to put the city of Chester we're petitioning the court for receivership from their loss of funding, mainly because of loss of funding from Harris, but also earned income tax, pension issues. All of those things are right at the top of the plate. And, you know, as we see legislation and opportunities, because of these challenging times, you know, we need you to be contacting your legislature so that we're not the only ones saying that this was a problem. You know, reach out to your legislature and talk to them. The labor and industry website is, I think, just LNI at pa.gov, and DCD's website is just dcd.pa.gov. And, you know, all these slides will be available to everybody. For wrap up and final questions, you know, this is once in 100-year event. God knows. I don't know that we've seen the crest or the worst of it yet. We're here to work with you. If you hear something, you know, reach out and I'll do the best to get the correct answer. You know, none of this is easy. As local elected officials, none of you are getting paid enough to be stuck in the middle like you are. So any help that I can be, my team at DCD can be, we will try to get you answers, and I'll turn it over to Rick to wrap up.
Secretary, thank you very much. Can I do one other, go back and ask try to clarify again, Terry's presentation on the budget forms, that wasn't advisory in that you will, we anticipate that you're going to have 75% reduction in your earned income tax. They were just numbers that were being plugged in, because there's a number of questions about that there. So if one of you could just clarify, or are they advisory that they anticipate that? I don't think it was, I think it was supposed to be a 25% loss and 75%. But are they all unique to the community that you need to make your own recommendations, but here's a good sheet to use?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, but Terry, can you specifically talk about the EIT again?
Yes, Rick, that's 75% for 90 days. That was just estimated with the first couple weeks of the total closure. But as you can see on the budget sheet, and if when you guys do receive them, overall, it becomes a total of 25% loss for the entire budget year. The reason the 75% is in there for the 90 days is because of the anticipated, the initial loss of EIT revenue. And then there's an anticipated loss in your third quarter coming up also too. But overall, it tabulates as a 25% loss, total loss. I hope that clarified that up a little bit.
Again, Terry, you're suggesting to communities that is an estimate that the department is seeing, and that it's suggested as an advisory percentage, correct?
It absolutely is. And these are not projected by our department. These are projected by the financial consultants. But that's an overall, then it tabulates to an overall loss throughout the budget year of 25% reduction in the EIT. Yeah, so it definitely is. And plus also too, if anyone requests this spreadsheet, they can go in and change their own formulas for what suits their city also.
Thank you. Excellent.
This is Ted. I just wanted to say too that this spreadsheet has been shared with all the policy specialists. Terry has done a very good job of working with all the people that represent us throughout the state, represent the center throughout the state. So you can talk to them and hopefully they'll be able to walk you through if there are questions that go beyond this conversation as well. So I just wanted to add that in.
Thank you, Ted. If we missed a question, please pose it to us. I'll make sure that either the department gets it or we answer it at the LIG. You all should have our information, and if you don't, go to pml.org and it's there. But Secretary, thank you and your team. Excellent presentation. I think everyone found it useful. If we didn't answer a question, I apologize, but again, please pose it. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everybody.
Yep. Be safe, everyone. Take care. Thanks for being on. Write to your congressperson. We need you.